So the District of Port Hardy and the Mayor and Council, we've tried to create a process where everyone has a voice at the table, and we'll continue to do that. In our strategic plan, we have 4 pillars, and under those 4 pillars, one of the ones that really addresses a healthy community is our social pillar, where it looks at housing, it looks at poverty and harm reduction, it looks at communications, and it looks at recreation. And as well, we're also under the pillars looking at the culture and looking at our youth and our outdoor activities, our buildings, our recreation. And our community is a community that wants a healthier community, like many other communities. But because we're a small one, we have many community members that we can reach out to. And some of the processes are looking at bringing everybody to the table and having equity at the table and having a wide range of stakeholders, whether it's someone that has lived experience on the streets or someone who is the executive director of a society or an organization.
It was important for us to access the PlanH funding to support Council's strategic goals and vision. One of those strategic goals is poverty and harm reduction. Another one is relationship building. Over the last few years, we've been forming relationships and providing opportunities for the Safer Places project, as well as forming a situation table. Accessing this fund actually allowed us to be able to take a step back, build some further relationships, and figure out what we were missing. Accessing this funding was actually really great for us because it gave us an opportunity to kind of take a step back, have some discussions, and see where we wanted to go. We didn't have a poverty reduction coordinator, which we had anticipated having as part of this project. So we had to do things differently and do things in-house, which allowed us to build some better and stronger relationships between the district and other agencies, as well as First Nations, BC Ambulance, RCMP, Mount Washington Health Network, just to name a few. We had a great opportunity presented to us as having this funding with the ability to partner with the help seekers and create the CARDO database. And the CARDO database will allow us to map the services within the community and to be able to provide the access point for individuals and agencies to be able to connect people to services on a regular basis. The other thing that we were able to achieve out of this funding was also the wellness fair. And this was a really great opportunity for us to bring all of the agencies together, as well as bring the community in to actually see what our agencies are doing to support them in the community. The biggest gap we found as we were doing this project was the fact that people actually had no idea what services were offered within their community and what our healthcare workers and our service providers were actually doing for the community. And even when we're looking at vulnerable populations and access to service, trying to make sure that we can connect those together. And by having the wellness fair, we were able to connect vulnerable populations as well to those additional services. As part of our situation table, we actually were able to access a shift BC training, which allowed us to be able to bring our service providers together to talk about the radicalization of violence and how to prevent that and things that we can use to cope with individuals that are suffering from extreme trauma and extreme events that might lead them to that radicalization, and also understanding our own community needs as well and kind of what those partners are looking at and the struggles that they might be having with regards to being able to connect people to those services and trying to ask those really hard questions to see what the opportunities are to be able to support people in our community. The Safer Place to Be project was a collaboration between the RCMP, BC Ambulance, Island Health, and the District of Port Hardy. It was an opportunity to provide a safe place for people to go, to be able to get away from the businesses and stop the disruption that was happening outside of the local businesses downtown, which was causing some economic challenges for our local entrepreneurs. This was an opportunity for us to be able to provide a safe place in the center of town, close to where everybody was already hanging around, and allowed us to create an ability for Island Health to outreach on a regular basis. This meant that they could be providing water, they could be providing a small shelter for a heat dome or any kind of rain events that might be happening, as well as providing just access to local services. So mental health and addictions services were also provided to the people in the park. It was a great opportunity for the RCMP RCMP to have a place where people could go and feel safe, but also that the RCMP could still monitor. And we actually had feedback from the residents that were using the park that they actually felt safer and more connected to services as a result. The District of Port Hardy, we were able to actually meet with the individuals that were using the facilities to find out exactly what they needed. And it was interesting to find out that we might think that people want buildings and infrastructure and all of these extra things, and we go ahead and we build it. But actually, really what it came down to is they were just really happy to have a nice open space that they could go and hang out with their friends and feel social and feel connected to one another, to be able to get access to services if the services are provided to them. But all they really wanted was just something to sit on, and it could just mean that it's a log. So we didn't have to put in large amounts of infrastructure for this to make it a successful project. But the outreach services was the most important part for us to be able to provide a safer place for people. And rather than having people in bushes or hiding behind businesses, they were in a nice central location to be able to access those services.
We try to include everybody, whether it's at one specific table. For example, the situation table that we have, we lobbied hard, our council lobbied hard with Minister Farnsworth, who's the Minister of Public Safety, and he was able to help us direct our energies towards getting a situation table. And we had many people and have many people that have taken the training at our situation table to try and help divert people from going into the court system to being not losing their homes or not losing their children. And so we have a number of different people at this table that are from the First Nations community, that are from RCMP, that are from Salvation Army, that are from the Crisis and Counseling Center. So lots of different people at the table that are working hard for our community and trying to make it the healthiest community as possible.
We hosted a circle group, essentially is what we would like to call it, because that was actually one of the identifying factors that came out of it, is that we needed to have more of these conversations. Dr. Enns was able to join us and help to form a bit of a conversation around what the gaps are within our community and how we can better strengthen each other's services. What we did find is that we actually do have quite a few missing links as a result of agencies either not being connected with one another or not knowing what was actually happening. So that actually formed some discussion around bringing back the circle group and meeting regularly so that we can find out what's going on, training together so that we can ensure that we know who the players are at the table, creating a database to be able to pool all of our resources in one spot so that we can actually all access that, as well as the public can access that information. And then just having an open dialogue and understanding of where everybody is coming from. And it was a really successful event, and it created basically opened up all the doors for us to be able to build better relationships with the agencies around us. And while the District of Port Hardy is not typically in health services, it is nice to be able to have that municipal connection and to be able to know who we can rely on and who it is that we can go forward with. And actually, as a result of that, the District of Port Hardy was actually able to host a really successful naloxone event as the opioid crisis is challenging us as we go through. It was an opportunity for us to take a step back and say, you know what, I think there's a really good chance for us to be able to outreach to the community and provide some better feedback and input. And as the district kind of took a bit of the, not necessarily, we didn't do the training with respect to providing the training, but we provided that space. And then we had all of our staff participate in that training as well, so that we can be better informed and understand what's actually happening within our communities.
The Community Wellness Grant Program helps promote health and wellness across the region, and Island Health serves to foster local partnerships and grassroots initiatives. Last year, nearly $800,000 came through this wellness program, and they funded a mix of projects and initiatives across the island. I've recently read a quote, and I can't remember who wrote it, and so I'm just going to read it to you. But it said that approximately 60% of what influences our individual health is related to elements found within our everyday lives and the environment that we live in. I think this speaks to why the Wellness Grant Program supports applicants who work collaboratively with other community partners and with their local government. In the example of the Wellness Cafe in Port Hardy, we saw the Mount Waddington Community Health Network working in partnership with the District of Port Hardy. And the district's decision to support a project like the Wellness Cafe shows that they recognize their role in building a healthy community. To me, the example of the Wellness Cafe in Port Hardy and these partners working together with the focus on well-being of the community is exactly the goal of the Wellness Grant Program.
Hi, my name is Marjorie Greensides. I am the coordinator of the Mount Waddington Health Network. Earlier this year, we held a wellness forum as a result of a number of community crises that had resulted, and the community was in deep mourning. And so not only were individuals being impacted, but a number of their caregivers and service providers in the region were also feeling the impacts, both personally and professionally, from a number of those crises. So the Health Network felt, in partnership with Island Health, Healthy Communities, the District of Port Hardy, at PlanH, to hold an event that was not only providing opportunity for community to connect and learn about the various agencies that were and support systems that were available here on the North Island, but also to celebrate and honor and provide wellness for our caregivers of community. The amount of time and energy and amazing work that these people put in on a day-to-day basis is so phenomenal, and providing a venue and an opportunity to celebrate that and help to support them in their journey and their travels of doing this difficult work was incredibly important to the Health Network and helps to contribute to the wellness of all of our community members. When designing the Community Wellness Fair, the World Forum, there were a number of things that we considered and wanted to take into account to ensure that we were meeting the needs of everyone that we wanted to participate. So in addition to inviting local agencies to set up as a fair, to share their resources, their knowledge, their expertise, their caring, and their support, we also created spaces for our local community and local residents to come together to not only connect with agencies and providers, but to connect with each other and help build that network. The other thing that we did that was a little sort of offbeat and not typical to a normal forum was we actually provided wellness professionals that people could take sessions in. So we had massage and nutrition workshops, as well as creative dance workshops. So looking at a variety of wellness modalities that one could take tools away from to help them in their everyday life.
The 2023-2024 Wellness Grant funding cycle is supporting projects that encourage community resilience, connected, diverse, safe, and nourished communities. And the Wellness Cafe project in Port Hardy touched on many of these resiliency goals, especially the goal of social connectedness. It was my pleasure to kind of dig into those relationships that I have in the community and kind of bring those people forward to help with the wellness fair. It was an amazing diversity of wellness providers who came and shared their skills and talents with the service providers and the public. It was just seeing the people so happy and excited after their treatments. I think that was maybe one of the best parts of the wellness fair.
Some of those faces when they came out of the room, right?
I know. It was really great. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So as identified when we were talking in our circle group about some of the things that were missing within our community, the one thing that did come up, of course, was, having a one-stop shop for all of the services to be gathered in. And so that allowed us to be able to talk to the help seekers who have a CARDO database, which allows all of the agencies to input all of their information, what services that they're providing, where they're located. And then it's actually all contained in a web format, so anybody can access it at any time. So if you happen to be sitting in a situation table, meeting and you are like, I don't know who does that service, we can actually just log in and we can find out who is actually providing that service. So whether it be food, shelter, clothing, access to mental health supports, and being able to just connect people to services was our main goal as part of this funding as well. So we wanted to make sure that we had something that was able to be accessed by everybody. One of our community partners that we've been aligned with for the last couple of years is the Salvation Army. And the Salvation Army is providing shelter services to our most vulnerable citizens. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, we had roughly about 6 beds that were used for the cold shelter. And then we had the 10 beds that were used for the Sobering and Assessment Center. The Salvation Army was not open 24/7 prior to COVID, but since we've been able to access some additional funding, we've been able to help support additional bed service, and the Island Health has actually increased the sobering and assessment. In addition to that, we've actually been able to extend their operation to a 24/7, and as part of our digital business enhancement program, we've actually been able to increase their web traffic as well as a brochure of services that they have in order to provide that information to the community so that they know what they can access. The Salvation Army has been really successful in securing additional supports in order to support the vulnerable, which of course has increased since COVID. Unfortunately, it has happened all over the province and all over the country. But in Port Hardy, it's definitely felt a little bit more because we're so much smaller, and with having less services available to those individuals, we need partners like the Salvation Army to step up and provide that.
Another example would be our recreation facilities, where we were able to get a grant to allow us to not have to charge anyone and not have to ask anyone what their financial background is. We want to keep it an equal playing field. We wanted people to come to our recreation center where they don't have to worry if they have money or not. They can just come. We don't want children to have to worry if they have to ask their parents for $2 to come swimming. They can just come, or $4 or $5. It doesn't matter. We didn't want to have anyone ask. They could just come. So all our public swimming and all our family swimming, all our public skating are free until June 2025. And we're, as a council, actively looking at ways of making it so this will continue for a long, long time. As long as I'm mayor, that's what we want.
One of the things that came out of our circle group discussions with Dr. Charmans, who is the medical health officer, was a drug and alcohol policy. We know that the North Island has a higher per capita usage of alcohol, and it became one of our prime topics of conversation. As a result, when we held the wellness fair, we centered everything around at the wellness fair around a healthier community. So we even actually hosted things like how to make a mocktail and how much fun it can be to have something that is non-alcoholic. And so it was a great opportunity for us to take what we discussed and what we see as being a definite concern on the North Island and try and figure out fun ways of going forward with maybe some policy creation, which would allow us to partner with the Mount Waddington Health Network, Island Health, and the District of Port Hardy in order to provide some guidance on what documentation would look like in regards to a policy. One of our successes in accessing the PlanH funding was bringing all of the agencies together to be able to have these discussions about how we can better serve our communities and create a healthier community. And of course, as I've mentioned before, we do have a drug and alcohol issue on the North Island, with the highest rate of drinking per capita being on the North Island itself. And we have met with the agencies. We've discussed with the different communities, First Nations, Island Health, the regional Mount Waddington Health Network, and trying to figure out ways of creating policy around drinking and what we can do in order to help support those who maybe are increasing the per capita amount of alcohol, and creating events that are more centered around a healthier community, such as having mocktails and things like that at different events. It has been a struggle, and it will be a continuing discussion going forward. We haven't been able to create that policy now, but we do have the framework and the partnerships now to be able to say, this is a definite issue within our communities, and we want to be able to support a healthier community. So it gives us an opportunity to outreach to all of those agencies to be able to help develop better policies going forward in order to support a healthier community around drugs and alcohol.
So everyone has an important role to play in forming healthy communities. A healthy community is when the built social, economic, and natural environments allow people the opportunity to live to their full potential and support the community and in making it better for themselves and their family and their friends and their neighbors. Communities have embraced the healthy community approach because it recognizes that many factors contribute to what makes a community and its citizens healthy. It encourages leaders, citizens, and communities to work together to build on existing assets, improve local health and well-being. Collaboration is the key, and the Wellness Cafe in Port Hardy was an example of how this is done well in our community.
So as a community, as a small community where our median income is low, unfortunately, it's very low. And as mayor and council, we don't want to raise our taxes any higher than we have to. But we still want a really healthy community. So we rely on grants. And I cannot say enough about the PlanH grant, the iced tea grants that we've been able to apply to, and as well as the Reddit grants. That without those grants, and other grants, of course, too, but without those grants, we wouldn't be able to do as much as we're doing for our community and to make it as healthy as possible. So thank you very much.